Healthcare reform reaches an important milestone in America and creating jobs in America through the eyes of some people from Focus Hope. Those are our topics today on Spotlight. It's Sunday, July 1st. I'm Chuck Stokes, and this is Spotlight.
Whatever the politics, today's decision was a victory for people all over this country whose lives will be more secure because of this law and the Supreme Court's decision to uphold it.
As you might imagine, I disagree with the Supreme Court's decision, and I agree with the dissent. What the court did not do on its last day in session, I will do on my first day if elected President of the United States. And that is, I will act to repeal Obamacare.
And welcome to Spotlight as we tackle that healthcare battle. That's one of our topics today on our show. And joining me is Robert Settler. He is professor at Wayne State University, constitutional law professor, and has been there a long, long time. How many years now?
Since 1977.
All right, that's a long time. And seated next to him is Robert Bobby Shostak. He is chairman of the Michigan Republican Party, and we appreciate your joining us as well. Let me start with you, Bobby Shostak. Most people are saying that President Obama won. He won a big battle. Has he won the battle but not the war?
I think that's a good way to say it and to summarize it. Obviously, we were disappointed about the mandate. However, our base, and I think frankly independent voters, are really inspired right now and engaged in this election. They were engaged before. They wanted to see a new president in the White House. And I think now we've got the independent vote, the undecideds moving our way as a result of this. And it's pretty exciting.
Professor Settler, you've seen a lot of important decisions from the U.S. Supreme Court throughout the years. How do you view this particular decision?
His decision, as a commentator, seemed a little strange. He said that Congress didn't have the power to impose the individual mandate under its power over interstate commerce, that you couldn't force people into the market, but that Congress could use the taxing and spending power to impose a tax on people who didn't have insurance. So he said that the individual mandate with the taxing provision is constitutional as an exercise of the tax and spending power.
You agree as a constitutional law expert?
My view of this case is that Congress clearly had the power under the interstate commerce power. And I don't think you can separate the mandate from the tax. And the other 8 justices did not. I tend to think that Supreme Court decisions get accepted by the public and have a certain legitimatizing effect. You remember Bush v. Gore.
Yes.
And obviously I'm a partisan Democrat and I was very unhappy with the decision. But I predicted that in a couple of weeks, all the media talk is going to go away. The public will accept the decision, even the many Democrats who didn't like it, and George Bush will be the president and it'll be forgotten.
Well, I think first off that it will play out in the 12 elections. There isn't any question about it. Going into this decision, 55% of the public was opposed to the law. Okay, and that hasn't changed. Just because there's a decision doesn't change people's opinion of the law, of Obamacare, number one. Number two, 74% were opposed to the mandate. And again, just because the court decided isn't going to change their view on the mandate. And I think as we go into elections, and if you look at the elections this year, where topics like Obamacare and other things going on in Congress, spending, debt, etc., that has affected outcomes in Senate primaries recently. It's affected outcomes in congressional races that are mid-year, midterm. And 2012, November, is going to be, in my view, it will be a wave kind of election. I think this sort of thing will impact the outcome of the United States Senate, and it will impact the outcome of the presidency.
All right, let's get one thing clear. Governor Romney came out shortly after the decision and said, if you elect me, I will fix this problem the first day I get into office. First of all, government doesn't quite work like that. He's got to work with a Senate and he's got to work with a House, correct?
Especially
he may push for that, but he can't single-handedly do it.
You saw how difficult it was, where the Democrats had big majorities in the House and the Senate and the presidency to enact the Affordable Health Care Act in the first place. The only way they could ultimately do it after Senator Brown won the Massachusetts election was to resort to this budget reconciliation technique, so you only needed a Senate majority.
All right.
That, by the way, was what they did with the Bush tax cuts, and that's why we debate every year whether to extend it.
The impact of this decision on the state of Michigan. How is Michigan going to react to this? We already have Governor Snyder saying, let's move forward, let's get the Michigan exchange portion of this in place.
Well, the governor's perspective, and you have to respect it, is that he wants to have the state ready for something that's required of him. And that's he's the chief executive.
Right.
That's his obligation. It's his responsibility to the citizens. The legislature needs to put it forward, and the legislature is still debating the appropriateness of the exchange. And we had a discussion offline, Professor and I, on where that came out in this decision, if that requirement is still in place, or did the court rule on that? And I don't think we're sure just yet. But either way, I think that the governor has a responsibility, and he's going to do what he has to do to fulfill that. But it's got to get to the legislature, and that's going to be a hot discussion all summer long, even though they're not in session.
Professor, can the state opt out of this?
Well, in that,
and you were particularly interested in Michigan Attorney General Bill Schuette's ruling on this and his argument to the U.S. Supreme Court that they sided with him.
Which was successful. There's a little known part of the opinion. It didn't get a lot of publicity, but it's a states' rights decision, and it's a victory for Attorney General Schuette and other attorney generals that were challenging the provision on Medicaid expansion. Medicaid is a partnership between the states and the federal government, but the federal government makes the rules. And so the view before had been, if the states don't like it, they can opt out and pick up all the responsibility for Medicaid themselves. There was a provision in the Affordable Care Act that there's a Medicaid expansion by 2014. And if the states don't agree to do that, they're going to lose all of the Medicaid funding.
Professor Settler, very quickly, we've heard Bobby Shostak, chairman of the Michigan Republican Party, say that this is going to galvanize Republicans and it's going to bring them out of the woodworks in November, and they're going to vote for Romney. Will it do the same thing for supporters of President Obama?
I think when you go provision by provision, like insurance companies can't cancel you, that they can't ration medical care and cancel your policy because you spent too much, that they have to insure everybody despite existing conditions, that young people stay on the parents' policies until they're 26. I think those provisions are popular.
Certainly there are a lot of hospital executives that are happy with this decision. There are a lot of individual people that are happy with this decision. The business community, Chamber of Commerceers around this country, they are not thrilled with this decision, correct?
Correct, they're not. This adds cost to business, this adds pressure on margins, which are already thin, and it's going to make some very direct decisions and impact on employment in Michigan. I mean, store owners, do they open another store? Do they reinvest? Do they cut hours? Do they close stores? I mean, there's going to be some really tough decisions to be made here. And I think, to the point earlier, is that correct, individual provisions of health care might be looked at, but the totality of what's going on in government today is putting all Americans in angst. And I think that's what this election is going to be about.
Yes or no, that's all I have time for. The only thing I may be able to get the two of you to solidly agree on, this was clearly a historic decision when we look back 40 years from now. Professor Sedley, yes or no?
Mixed. I got to say mixed. Historic politically.
You can't give me a yes or no.
Historic politically, not that important in terms of constitutional doctrine.
Historic, yes, because it'll lead to President Romney.
All right. Bobby Shostak, Chairman of the Michigan Republican Party, thank you for coming in and weighing in on this very important decision. Professor Robert Settler of Wayne State University, thank you for coming in. We'll be right back, and we'll talk about what most people say is the #1 issue in this campaign, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, and that's jobs and creating jobs. We'll be right back. Stay with us. William, let me start with you. You get the responsibility and the job of worrying about everything associated with Focus Hope and the mission of Focus Hope. How has the mission of Focus Hope changed, or has it changed from when it was founded shortly after the riots?
No, I think that's the beauty of our mission and our mission statement. Right at its heart, it calls for intelligent and practical action to overcome racism, poverty, and injustice. And we're still operating against the same mission statement that Eleanor Father Cunningham pulled together back on March 8th, 1968, which we call our birthday, for example.
Right.
But the mission hasn't changed. We've affected the mission in different ways.
So the organization is still relevant today, even though we aren't dealing with the aftermath of a riot.
Well, the city never completely recovered from that. Let's be honest about that. And the challenges that they face then are still present today. But how we go about tackling those challenges, you know, we had the food program. All right, back in the early 70s when we started that.
Right.
That still continues to this day. The Commodity Supplemental Food Program still supports low-income seniors and low-income mothers with dependent children, and we're supporting 43,000 individuals each month with that program, ourselves and our partners. Right, that's one. The Machinist Training Institute, the Information Technology Center, those actually started in the 80s and continued to evolve as we saw how the needs of industry and the needs for the community we serve could be matched through intensive and very, very purposeful training in ways that got people jobs, provided them the education and necessary supports to get through that. And most recently, we've embraced the neighborhood around our campus as a manifestation of the continuation of that mission statement: intelligent, practical action to overcome racism, poverty, and injustice, and are determined to go a mile deep in that 1 square mile area around our campus to see if we can't materially change the trajectory of that particular neighborhood.
Has Focus Hope bounced back financially in every way that is important for this organization to exist?
Well, we had a great event. We've gotten lots of support. The money's great because of what the money allows us to do, right? And we're affecting a couple of very major and important programs right now. One's called the Southeast Michigan Southeast Michigan Talent Enhancement Program. It's supported by the state and the federal government. It's enabling us to train machine operators as well as IT professionals for careers. These are shortened programs, ones we've typically worked on. They're focused on 18 to 24-year-old youth, although we do manage to seed in others as well to make sure that we do it. And the importance of that is it gives folks a chance at a real job, a real opportunity right now today, because there are jobs out there. The other is Earn and Learn, which is a much shorter program. It too is focused on a demographic, a younger demographic primarily. It's 4 weeks of intense training again. At the end of that 4 weeks, you would be eligible for a individual training account of up to $4,500. So you can continue your training. Plus, it allows us to place people in subsidized employment for up to 28 weeks.
Yemi, let me start with you. At that Eleanor Jositis tribute, there was a video of you. And by the time that video was finished, everybody stood up and gave you a standing ovation. And I looked at some of the people and there were tears coming down their eyes because of your story. Tell us your story.
My journey began with Focus Hope in 2000. I had just lost my mom. I was living in Nigeria. She was the only relative there. And so came to the U.S. after that. And I had my newborn baby. And I knew I needed to give him a path to stability and security. And I couldn't do that unless I had a job or a career path that provided that. So I heard about Focus Hope, and I came, and I was actually told about the ITC program. But when I got there, the recruiters were so energetic about this engineering program, and it's 100% tuition free. You don't have debt at the end. And for me, it was intimidating. It was a great thing, but it was intimidating because I did not have any math skills. My background was performing arts, so it was a totally different switch.
That's a difference.
And so when I came to Focus Hope, I went through the first step and the fast track program, and those programs were to hone my foundation in math and reading. And so I went through those, got into the Machinist Training Institute. And that was when I went through the mills, the grinders, CNC, computer numerical control machinery, learned basic programming. So at the end, I actually earned Best in Class award for academics, attitude, and attendance. And that was when I actually, for the first time, realized I could become an engineer.
And how many degrees do you have now?
2.
Masters?
Master's in Business Administration from Lawrence Tech. My undergrad is from University of Detroit Mercy in Manufacturing Engineering.
You're gainfully employed now?
Gainfully employed through Focus Hope as a project engineer. So
We know talent when we see it.
You kept her at home, right?
Well, no, she actually went away and worked.
yes,
for
I
us.
went away. I was in Indiana for 2 years.
Brought her back.
And I came back.
All right. And your family, your child is doing well?
Yes, he is in 6th grade, and he is doing really well in school.
So the sky is the limit for you now?
Yes. I mean, from there, I'm thinking of going to get my PhD, and so it just keeps growing on, and it all started with Focus Hope.
All right. Maurice, I have not forgotten about you. I have to slip a commercial break in here, pay a few bills myself. We want to come back. We want to hear your story because I know it is equally as compelling as Yimmy's. Okay. We'll be right back. We hope you stay with us. And before we went to the break, I sort of teased that we would be coming back and hearing the story of Maurice Respes. Now we want to hear that story. You're a field engineer.
I am a field engineer at the Detroit Medical Center. I work for CareTech Solutions.
How long have you worked?
I've worked for CareTech for about 2 years now. I started in May 2010, been there ever since. It's an excellent company to work for.
What were you doing before you got to Focus Hope?
Well, I actually started Focus Hope in 1999. I was going up there job hunting. I was fresh out of high school. And the young lady at the desk said I was really bright and I should start in their manufacturing program. That's how I started off. So I went through NTI like my associate here and did that for about 4 years. In 2005, I was in a car accident and I lost a lot of things, so I couldn't do manufacturing again. And because I know the reputation of Focus Hope, when I was physically able, I went back there because I knew they were going to give me the tools that I needed to succeed in the IT industry.
When you got injured, what happened in your life at that point?
It was I lost everything. Lost my home, lost my car, lost my spouse, my wife up and left. So it was just me and my 2 daughters. We moved in with my mother, then after that we moved in with my sister, and it was me and those 2 girls sleeping on the couch, waiting for me to be physically able to get back in the workforce, because I was turned down for jobs because of my physical limitations.
That had to be extremely difficult.
It was really, really rough, and it's really sad when your children ask you for something and you can't provide it for them. It was really heartbreaking.
What picked you up? What made that connection to Focus Hope? And how did you continue to motivate yourself to get from where you were to where you are now?
Well, once my doctor told me I was able to get back to work, I immediately wanted to get into the IT field. So I gave Focus Hope a call. I took the entry test. I passed. And my motivation was my 2 daughters, because I can't see myself having them sleep on a couch again, and I want them to have their own. It's really heartbreaking to have my 2 children homeless at the time.
How are your daughters doing now, and how are you doing now?
Well, now my daughters are excellent. My youngest, she will be graduating kindergarten June 1st. And like I said earlier, 2008, we were homeless. Recently, we just closed on a 5-bedroom home in the Boston Edison Historic District.
Fantastic. Huh?
Yeah, so it has been very lucrative.
If you and Yimmy had to send a message to people watching this particular program who may be unemployed at this particular time, what would it be?
I will tell them to come to Focus Hope and find out what Focus Hope really is about and all the opportunities available for them. They shouldn't be intimidated. They should know that it's going to take hard work to get to where they want, and that small, short-term sacrifices produce long-term gains. So that's what I would tell them, to come and devote themselves to the program, and at the end they would not regret it.
Maurice?
If I were to tell them anything, it's just listen to my story, how I came from nothing, and 2 years later, I'm now a homeowner in the city of Detroit. You know, anything is possible. If you just, like she said, with hard work and determination, you can achieve anything. So please give Focus Hope a try, because they have great knowledge of the product. They have a great understanding of they have great teaching, and they can deliver it in a language where it's not too complicated to understand, and it will pay off in the end.
William, what is the biggest obstacle that Focus Hope faces at this given time?
We always want to do more, okay, and we're always constrained by the resources that are available to us at any point in time, but nonetheless we're committed to making certain that folks like Yemi, folks like Maurice have that opportunity to bridge where they are into something more. Because as you listen to their stories, it's not just what's happened for them, but it's what's happened for their children as well. So there's an entirely new trajectory available to them as individuals and for their families. So those challenges are challenges that we're determined to overcome, Chuck. And I mean, we need help. We need lots of help. But with that help, these are the types of results that we're driven to produce.
We need to get another commercial break in. We'll hurry right back with some more questions. We hope you stay with us. Let's clarify one thing. For the two of you, when you were students, trainees, or whatever the proper term is, at Focus Hope through the machinist training program, how much did you have to pay out of pocket for all that you learned at Focus Hope?
$0.
$0.
I didn't have to pay anything.
That must have been a real blessing.
Oh yeah, it was a great relief.
If you had to pay anything, would you have been in a position to come up with anything?
Not at the time. I didn't have a job. I had never worked, coming from a different country, so I would have been flat. I would have had to go and apply for loans maybe if I qualified, but it would have been really difficult.
Yeah. Maurice?
I don't think out of pocket I had a small copay of $200, but that's stretched over a 6-month time period. And if I did not have the finances, they gave me the opportunity to work in the school to work off my copay. So in essence, you probably don't have to come up out of any money.
That's a critical element that people need to understand. To the extent that we're able, we provide all of these services tuition free. And not just the services of the direct training, but if somebody needs support for bus fare, okay, if you need food, if there are other supports that you need. Child care.
Because I know you have a child care center there.
Center.
And if you're a parent, I mean, that's a major important responsibility, worrying about what is happening with your child as well as being able to provide. But if you got someone taking care of them while they're in class, then that's stress off your mind.
That's stress off their mind. So too many folks will encounter barriers or bottlenecks as they're trying to work themselves into a situation. And we like to help them remove those barriers, or at least chart a path where they can remove those barriers themselves. It builds confidence. They invest in them. We will match your investment that you put into your education, your training, with our investment.
All right, Maurice, Yemi, William, thank you for joining us, and best of luck to all of you, and best of luck to you there at Focus Hope. Special thanks to all of my guests today. I'm Chuck Stokes. We'll be back next week with more Newsmakers in the Spotlight. We hope you have a good week and a great July 4th.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is next here on 7.